I'm calling the Finance Committee of October 13th to order. Is there any corrections, additions, or omissions? Seeing none, may I have an approval of the agenda? I see you, Randy. Can you type approval of the agenda? Okay, it's been, and I second it. All those in favor say aye. Okay, great, yes. May I have an approval of the minutes? He's communicating through chat, so that's what I'm looking at. He's moved approval of the minutes. I second it. All those in favor say yes. Okay, we now have approval of the minutes. Thank you very much, Randy. That's great. So with that, may I have the draft budget amendment?
Okay, Lynn, are you going to talk about that?
Are you going to share your screen, Lynn?
Lynn, I can't hear you if you're talking. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So this should have been included with the packet that was available for the Finance Committee.
Is it the Executive Director position budget impacts?
It is.
Yes.
Thank you, Cindy. Correct. I want to make sure everyone has it in front of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
Randy's off on the plane, so we won't know, but I'm sure at least we've got that far.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, all. I was asked by the board to provide an update on the impacts to our fiscal year 2022 budget that the board approved, specifically what the budget impacts would include with our current director leaving and hiring a new one. And what you have before you is definitely a snapshot. The snapshot includes the approved budget by the board in June, which was $2,721,210.
Right.
The additions include $92,359. What that includes is on the bottom of the sheet, detailed out with Fran, her salary adjustment that the board recently approved from 165 to 180,000 effective October 1. Benefits that are applied to it, the payout of her sick and vacation along with the benefits.
Okay.
That amounts to 53,549. Hiring a new executive director, I had to make an assumption here that based on the salary range of the new director coming in, I assumed they would come in at $165,000 a year, basically the same amount that Fran's at currently.
Okay.
The scheduled start date is projected February 1, 2022. At $165,000 a year for 5 months, that represents $68,750 plus benefits.
Okay, wait, I've got to see where that is located. Okay.
The $68,750 is salary, $22,000 is estimated to be benefits.
Okay.
That calculates to $90,750. We already have in the current budget $51,940 that would have carried us through June 30th under Fran's old salary amount of $165,000. So I obviously had to remove that because we don't need it because it's already in the budget.
Oh, okay.
So the budget adjustment is $144,000 less $51,940 because it's already in the budget. What we would need to do is look at a possible budget amendment of $92,359. And again, that's based on the two scenarios of Fran's increase, benefits, payout of sick and vacation, and the hiring of a new executive director.
Quick question. So that would, does that need to come out of reserve? Do we have it plenty?
Good question, Cynthia. So when the board approved the budget in June, the board also approved an extra principal and interest payment in our current fiscal year. That's not happening now because of the extra debt service payment we did at the end of last year, if you recall.
All right.
You refunded the bond, reissued, and because it was at year end, that money was still included in the fiscal year 22 budget. And the reason for that is because if the board wouldn't approve the debt extra service payment, then we would have been short again for this fiscal year. So in a nutshell, Cynthia, it's possible that some of this 92,000 will be covered in our current fiscal year budget because we have spending authority that will not occur with our debt service payment as originally thought. I'm hoping, Randy, you're on board with this. Cynthia, you understand what
I understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
And I'm not sure if Randy can hear us now because it will need a motion to move recommend to board 92. Yes, change in budget.
Not at this time, Randy. And the reason is, one, we have to go open it up to public because it's a public hearing that's required with the budget amendment. And at this time, I'm suggesting we hold off until probably January, because the largest payment out of this budget impact is going to happen in April with the payment of sick time for when Fran leaves our agency. So the reason why I'm suggesting we wait is because, one, we already know we have about 40,000 in our current budget that's not going to be expended towards debt service. And two, we do have some leasehold improvements budgeted of 30,000 that we don't know how much we're going to consume. So I guess what I'm saying is I would propose that we hold off doing a budget amendment until possibly January to see where we are mid-year in the event we may not have to. However,
Okay.
So Lynn, Randy's question is, don't we need to recommend before the hearing? So yes, so if there is a decision, so this is more of a heads up for the finance committee, just because, you had asked for us to look ahead. That's what Lynn has done. If we need a budget amendment, absolutely, we will bring it to the, we bring it back to you in a more formal sense. And ask you, do you approve this? And then you would then, if you approved it, make a recommendation to the board. And then we'd have, we'd have a public hearing with the board. And then we'd, be a budget amendment to the fiscal year 2022 budget. So what Lynn is saying is, let's just see if we actually really need it before we go ahead with it. And to answer your first question, we do have money in the reserve. Remember, we put an additional, what did we put in? 128,000 into the reserves this past year, I think, Lynn.
actually, Cynthia asked, what do we actually have $213,510 in a contingency fund for the payment of vacation and sick leave once staff leave our agency.
Right.
So that's part of our contingency that the board has set aside along with a database, monitoring, office building.
That would pay for the payout of sick and vacation, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So it would be coming out of the contingency fund specifically for vacation and sick leave payout.
Okay. Yeah, because we've set that aside previously. You have to, because you always have to pay it out. So.
Correct.
Okay.
And in order to actually access it, the board would have to make a formal, not only budget amendment, but resolution transferring the funds from that contingency to our budget in order to expend it.
Okay, so my assumption then is that we would need two resolutions, one to do that and then one to approve a hearing for that, correct?
Well,
A hearing for the budget amendment?
so definitely one resolution to access the contingency reserve, and then the budget amendment, we could create a resolution as well, specifically for the dollar amount once we
Know it. Okay, got it.
You're correct. You're right.
Everyone's on board, it sounds like. Thanks, Cynthia.
Well, I've had to pay employees when they retire before, and I'm always shocked, like, oh, that we have to plan for that. So,
We do plan for that for employees. So it's up. So Lynn has it in the contingency every single year.
yes, as well as set a date for the hearing. Okay.
So we'll wait till January and we'll bring back a recommendation to the finance committee, who will then make a recommendation to the full board on two things: budget amendment and resolution. Right now, we're gonna hold until we get closer to January. Are you comfortable with that, Cynthia and Randy?
I am. Randy, are you?
I'm not, he hasn't responded yet. Yes, he's okay.
Yes.
Sounds good. And Fran, you're comfortable with that as well?
Absolutely.
And Debbie, you're comfortable with that too?
Sure. We're good.
Thank you.
Okay. Got it. So that makes sense. Is there anything else you want to bring up about this?
Not at this point. It's a lot of good detail. It's a snapshot, and I think it provides good information for us to move forward and review in January.
Okay.
Randy, he said in about 5 minutes. That's okay, Randy. Thank you for participating. Safe travels.
Yes. Okay, so now, are we on to the quarterly report?
Yes.
Yes.
Blush.
Okay, well, we have a 2-page quarterly report. It's like the comparative summary of the agency budget, revenues, and expenditures. And it shows a lot of good information, shows last year's information, fiscal year 2021. Second column is the current budget year that the board approved, the 2.7 million. The third column includes the first quarter, July, August, and September of revenue activity and expenditure activity. And then the fourth column obviously reflects the difference between budgeted versus where we are 3 months into the year. The last two columns, the comparison from last year to this year, it's quite interesting to look at. And I'll let you, review those items on your own, but we're pretty much on target. The first quarter, we typically are around 30-ish%. We did collect a little bit more in fines during the first quarter of this fiscal year, 66%. So I know Fran has a little footnote that she'll be describing later on with how those will continue to impact the budget. But really, we are where we should be. We've collected $937,000 of our $2.7 million budget, so we're 34% there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing unusual to report with the revenues coming in beyond the fines that we've received. Again, we received 66% of our budget of $55,000. So that reflects $36,000 in fines we received 3 months into the year. We're on target with really our rents and all of our federal and state grants. Those I bill out on a quarterly basis. We incur the expense first. I request reimbursement. And so the reflection of the expenditures will be seen in next quarter's report. But we are on target. Fran, do you want to add anything to the revenues?
Just to say that, we're doing better this year with registration. So, we've lost some businesses last year, we've gained some this year, but people are paying, which is good. We hate to issue fines for late, but there are always some that are late. And our AOPs are coming in. So I think things are coming in. I will talk about the fines. We have some major fines potentially coming in this year. Interesting kind of situation, and we'll probably talk about more of that at the board meeting in terms of what the situation is. But there are two companies that knowingly did things without approvals, and so there are fines that result from that. So, I think that's something that Mark may talk about during the board meeting. We're still in the process of working with both these companies. I don't really want to mention their names at this point. But we're working with them. The key is to get them in compliance and figure out what's going on. In terms of, let's see, is there anything else? We did get our wood smoke reduction grant. We just got it. So, again, the revenues are slow coming in from that because I just signed it the end of last week, I think. So that one really hasn't started yet. It took ecology quite a while to get that one going. I think that's about it. We're doing well on asbestos in terms of revenue. And of course, for land clearing, the burn ban was up as of October 1st. When I looked at the map in terms of how many people have applied for, not necessarily land clearing, but just burning, it's huge.
Really?
Yeah, just kind of scary. So anyway, the land clearing revenues are starting to come in, but we've I forget what the number was. Within the first 3 days, I think we had 800 or something. Dan will probably give an updated number at the board meeting. But yeah, people are burning. And we've now included McCleary and Grace Harbor parts of Grace Harbor Fire District 12 in the process.
Those are residential.
Those are residential.
Residential.
Well, you don't see, there's no revenue for residential, but just the number of residential is just.
Wow. I did have a quick question. When you talk about, maybe you just told me, but I zipped out of my head, miscellaneous revenue. What does that kind of entail? Because, when you combine investment income, it includes rental and miscellaneous. And miscellaneous is 54% as opposed to 21 for last year.
Well, we budgeted about $500. And the $268, actually, the biggest portion of that is a rebate that we get from our credit card company. You know how a lot of people will use their credit card and get 1 or 2% of purchases. Well, this is something new that we're getting with US Bank with our credit card. So it's really nice.
Wow. I mean, it's not much, but I saw that kind of change and I thought, what could that be? Credit cards. I didn't think about that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nice perk. And we don't know what we're going to earn, right? So,
Right.
But anyhow, so we're getting about $110, $111 every 3 months.
Amazing.
Nice. So maybe we'll see that increase next year. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I encourage staff, don't use the credit card. I'd rather pay the vendor directly. One, because that's just better practices. And two, I'm able to create a database specifically when someone asks me 6-9 months down the road, Lynn, how much did we pay for bada bing? Well, with credit cards, I don't detail out on my accounting system. That would be, it would be crazy.
Right.
It's summed, and so it's easier to query the database if I pay vendors directly versus using a credit card. And really, the credit card is used mostly for gasoline purchases and some of our hardware software purchases where vendors don't accept checks or warrants. So, and that's an increasing, slowly increasing out there. So we'll see where we end up. I mean, it's like Department of Revenue. It's the only state agency that I'm aware of that does not accept checks. Period. End of story.
Oh my goodness.
The only one that I've come across. So So when I pay our B&O sales tax for the calendar year, I have to use the agency credit card, but it's a good thing. That's not an exorbitant number because we're careful with vendors, and we try to work with them to please make sure they charge us the sales tax. So
I can understand if you're out in the field and you're getting gas and you have to get something that, oops, I forgot to bring, I don't know what, but yeah, so you would go in and pick that up through a credit card.
the minor incidentals, an inspector might need, some protective eyewear or maybe some earplugs, So of
Sure.
course, things are going to happen. So, but that's the purpose of having the credit card also.
Okay,
But good question. So yeah, we hope to have that number increase next fiscal year. We'll see. So, any more questions on the revenue?
no,
Okay, well, let's move on to the expenditures. On the expenditure side, payroll, where we should be, about 24% with salaries and employee benefits. And in terms of non-payroll, supplies, gas, postage, we're on target there. We're slightly over in the non-payroll because we make our annual premium payment to Honduras at the beginning of our fiscal year for the fiscal year. So it's a prepayment of premiums. We budgeted 35,520 and they billed us 35,872. So that was a wild projection on my part, and it worked out well.
yes,
And also working with Honduras staff too closely, which they're great to work with. And the next is the building and operations. Obviously, we're very much underspent there. As I previously reported, the debt service payment of 45,000 is not happening this year. We will only be making a small interest payment under $400.
okay,
And again, that's why we, the refunding of the bond and the reissue took place at the end of last year. We don't know how much of the leasehold improvements, 30,000, that we will be using. But what we did earmark for that was landscape, this is all in the budget, the backup detail. And it included some leasehold improvements that are landscaping. We had some replace front door to Suite A. We're not replacing it now because we were able to fix it. And also the biggest expense is the possibility of changing out one of the HVAC systems at a cost of possibly 22,000. We don't know yet. So right now things are working, and we have our HVAC maintained every 3 months. We're talking to our maintenance agency that we work with, business, it's air handlers, and we're keeping a tight schedule and watching our maintenance with and the needs of our aging systems. But it's only a matter of time before a replacement's going to have to take place. We don't know.
okay,
For the operations, wood smoke education and TPO, Fran previously identified, she just signed the contract of this biennium last week. And so we'll be, you'll be seeing some expenditures next quarter for sure with some payouts. And then so the expenditures total 580,000. So we're about 22% expensed, 34% with revenue. So we have a slight, increase in our revenues at this point in time, and additional money in the bank. So that's a good thing.
yeah, it's amazing how pretty close to everything seems to be right now.
Yeah.
Linda's a good job of estimating and putting in budget for the budget.
Yeah.
It looks like it does. So it's a really good estimate of where we are revenue and expenditure wise, and where we think we'll be.
Okay, any questions on revenue or expenditures before we move to the fund balance sheet?
No,
Okay. So on the fund balance sheet, we started the year with 1,848,000. And as of 3 months later, September 30th, we're at 2,205,000.
Okay,
And then following that, you'll see the contingency reserve levels that the board has assigned for, our expense contingency, Title V, our security deposits, our file, office building, monitoring database, and vacation. So the contingency,
The number that Lynn was talking about before that we estimate every year, the vacation sick leave, it's a contingency fund every year.
sure.
so our contingency funds amount to right under $900,000. And our unrestricted fund balance is 1,453,000. Also included at the underneath at the bottom is what our long-term liabilities are. And this is what not only do we report to our state auditor's office with our annual reporting, but it's also helpful information because it shows a nice number. We have $44,273 remaining for the debt on our office building. That's
Wow.
a celebration yet to happen. And we will be celebrating once that is paid off. And the Department of Retirement Systems pension liability, that's our share of the state's retirement for the system to balance their books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when PERS 1 was a very nice retirement system, and PERS 2 is good too. However, we are subsidizing the payments under PERS 1, and that's why you see the pension liability. Everyone pays for it.
Sure. How many are still on PERS 1?
Golly, Cindy, good question. I don't know.
I mean, my husband is, but he's 83. But
First one closed in 1976. So if you started working after, I think the fall of 76, you were in PERS 2.
That's right. Okay, that's good to know.
October 1977.
Oh, 77, that was 76. Okay, 77.
No, that's okay. You're close, Fran.
Yeah,
I didn't make it.
I worked a year later, and that's why I'm thrown into PERS 2 rather than 1.
Oh, okay. So that is our fund balance report. Again, it's good. It's a positive report. It's a good report. And any questions further on the fund balance?
No, it looks pretty straightforward. I know Jim would have had 1,000 questions. I never do. But it looks, right on.
Okay. All righty. So, well, that actually wraps up our report on our quarterly report.
Okay, so wait, hang on a minute. I'm following on my iPad here. Well, that pretty much takes care of it. Or are you is there anything else?
I think that's our agenda.
Wow, that was quick. It
Yeah.
helps to have one person here, right? Okay, it looks good.
We got 30 minutes now.
Yeah, to just kind of take it easy and get another cup of coffee. But well, thank you. That was pretty straightforward, I thought. And I really liked the breakdown of the what it means about the executive directors and budgeting for that. So that's helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess with that, I'm going to close the Finance Committee meeting. It is 9:29, and we'll see you in about a half an hour.
Okay, sounds great.